Imagine walking into a small apartment late at night, thinking you're here for nothing more than a drink, maybe a conversation, maybe a moment of distraction. The lights are warm, a woman smiles at you, the city hums outside, and there's no clue, none at all, that behind the mirror on the wall, a CIA agent is watching your every move. And inside your drink, there's something that will tear your mind apart. This wasn't a spy movie. This wasn't fiction. This was Operation Midnight Climax, a secret subproject of MK Ultra run by the Central Intelligence Agency. And, what happened in those rooms is one of the darkest and strangest chapters in American history. Tonight, we're stepping straight into those safe houses, into the hallucinations, the shattered minds, and the mirrored walls that hid everything. Operation Midnight Climax began in the early 1950s when the CIA decided it needed a place to test LSD on unwitting civilians, places where men would relax, let their guard down, and never question a strange taste in their drink. So they built safehouses in San Francisco and New York City, disguised as apartments. Inside, they hired sex workers, not because they were part of the mission, but because their clients were the perfect test subjects, anonymous, vulnerable, disposable in the eyes of the agency. The sex workers were instructed to lure men inside, slip LSD into their drinks, and then simply step back. Behind two-way mirrors, CIA operatives sat in dark rooms, smoking cigarettes, taking notes, drinking martinis, and watching men unravel. And that's not an exaggeration. They literally drank martinis while watching. The architect of this program was a CIA chemist named Sidney Gottlieb, sometimes called the Black Sorcerer of the agency. He believed that LSD might unlock a path to mind control, truth extraction, or psychological domination. He didn't care what it did to people. He cared only about what it could do for national security. Under his guidance, Operation Midnight Climax became a playground for psychological cruelty. The agents didn't just watch, they manipulated. They exposed men to hallucinations so vivid that some screamed for hours, cried, curled into corners, or begged unseen figures to stop haunting them. Some begged the sex workers for help, not knowing they were part of the setup. Others wandered into the streets in terror, not even remembering their names. Inside those apartments, humanity evaporated. People became experiments. Their minds became puzzle pieces to be rearranged. Their fear became data points in CIA notebooks. And the most unsettling part? None of them knew it was happening. They walked in as ordinary people and walked out as broken versions of themselves, confused, shaken, hollowed out. And the CIA never contacted them again. No apology, no explanation, just psychological wreckage left behind on city sidewalks. One of the safe houses had a red lamp outside the window, a glowing signal that a new victim had entered, a sign for agents to get into position behind the mirror. That one detail says everything. A lamp. A signal, a man inside with a drugged drink, and behind a glass wall, government operatives waiting for his mind to fall apart. It's, the kind of thing you'd expect from a dystopian novel, but it happened in American cities under government payroll. The LSD doses were not mild. These weren't therapeutic tests. Subjects were given incredibly high doses, far beyond what most psychonauts would ever dare take. Some men were hit with hallucinations so extreme they thought they were floating, dying, trapped, melting, or being hunted. Imagine sitting in a chair and suddenly watching your hands dissolve like smoke. Imagine the room tilting sideways while the world turns into a nightmare. And you don't know why it's happening. You think you're losing your sanity. Somewhere, behind the mirror, someone writes, "Subject appears distressed. Subject crying uncontrollably. Subject paranoid." Words on a page. But these were lives unraveling. Some of the sex workers involved later said they hated what they had to do, that the men were regular people, frightened, trembling, begging for clarity. But in the machinery of Cold War paranoia, their feelings didn't matter. Their job was to lure, observe, and leave the rest to the agency. Many didn't even know the full scope of what MK Ultra was doing. They were just told it was part of national security. One of the more disturbing aspects involved what the agents called behavioral nudging. They would test the effects of suggestion, hypnosis-like commands, guilt manipulation, or whispered instructions during hallucinations. They wanted to see if the LSD would make subjects more compliant, more honest, more pliable. Could they be coerced into revealing personal secrets? Could they be influenced to act differently afterward? Could their identity be fractured? Every night, new men entered. Every night, new data was collected. And yet, Operation Midnight Climax wasn't just a cruel experiment. It was a psychological paradox. It revealed something terrifying. Identity is not as solid as we think. A few drops of a chemical could reshape a person's reality, emotions, memories, and even behavior. Watching that, the CIA believed they were getting closer to mind control. But in reality, all they did was learn how fragile the human mind truly is. And maybe that was the scariest discovery of all. The program ran for over a decade. Think about that. For more than 10 years, unsuspecting people were drugged, watched, and discarded. Imagine how many lives were disrupted, how many mental collapses were triggered, how many men walked the streets afterwards thinking they'd had a psychotic break, never knowing it had been orchestrated behind a mirror. Some experienced long-term paranoia. Some had recurring hallucinations. Some became dependent on alcohol or drugs just to numb their fear. All of it hidden behind classified documents. Operation Midnight Climax only came to light in the 1970s during the Church Committee hearings, and even then, much of the documentation had already been destroyed. Gottlieb ordered the destruction of thousands of files, hoping the details of what they had done would be erased forever. But enough documents survived to expose the truth. Enough victims came forward with stories that matched the patterns. Enough witnesses spoke out to piece together the reality. And suddenly, the world saw just how far a government agency had gone in the name of security. What can we learn from Operation Midnight Climax? That secrecy breeds cruelty, that when institutions operate without oversight, ethics become optional, that the human mind, your mind, can be shaped by environments you don't even realize you're in. But also that awareness is power. The more you understand how manipulation works, the harder you are to be manipulated. The more you understand your own psychology, the stronger your boundaries become. And the more you question the systems around you, the more control you keep over your own identity. Tonight, as we close this story, remember one thing. The men who entered those apartments didn't lose their minds because they were weak. They lost them because someone decided their minds were tools. Operation Midnight Climax wasn't just an experiment on drugs. It was an experiment on trust, privacy, identity, and the terrifying lengths that powerful institutions will go when they believe no one is watching. If bad systems can break a person, good systems can rebuild one. That is the real lesson buried beneath the fear. Operation Midnight Climax stands as a warning from history. Guard your mind, guard your environment, and never assume the mirror on the wall is just a mirror. Follow the channel for more hidden truths.